Let's talk about the IT sector. Kawaljeet Saluja from Kotak is now joining us on the phone line. Kawaljeet, thank you so much for taking out time for us. Could you just tell us about your recent initiation on L&T Infotech? Now, is it a part of your top pick list?
Yeah, I think it's amongst the more promising mid-cap companies. We have initiated coverage on L&T Infotech, in fact, with a buy rating recently, with a 12-month target price of 800. And our reason for optimism on L&T is simply based on three factors, which is solid presence in scale verticals of banking, insurance, and manufacturing. Second is their large account management capabilities. And third is they have an excellent client base, which they can mine well. I think based on these factors, we have initiated coverage with a buy rating. Valuations are, as I said, inexpensive at around 11.5 times the 2018 earnings. And on top of that, what you have is also an impressive management team. And, that has basically grown the business quite well in the last few quarters. And, a pretty high ROE and healthy free cash flow generation metrics.
Right. You are expecting about 11% CAGR growth in the top line. Would that be one of the industry leading ones?
Yes, that's right.
Right. In terms of valuations, what is it trading at as per your FY19 earnings, and how does it stack up to some of the other mid-cap IT companies?
It's trading at 10.5 times the 2019 earnings. Other mid-cap companies are trading at between. There's a wide spectrum of valuations amongst the mid-cap companies, but amongst the more prominent ones are Mindtree and Exaware. And they are trading at between 12.5 to 13.5 times the 2019 earnings.
Right. In your report, one of the key things is churn in the senior leadership in the past. Can you just explain that? What has happened in terms of leadership? Now, is it on the stable side?
Yeah, I think that is before Sanjay Jalona came in. There was a bit of churn in the leadership, with perhaps a lot of changes in one had seen. But, since Sanjay Jalona has come on board, there has been a series of senior management inductions from some of the competitors. And effectively, if you just look at it in the last few months, effectively the company now has a new CEO, COO, CFO, head of sales, chief digital officer, etc. What I also like is that, the CEO has added depth to the leadership through recruitments of people like Aftab from, he was heading Bank of America's captive unit. Sudhir Chaturvedi, who's the head of sales, Rohit Kedia, who heads manufacturing. There are multiple additions, which have been made in the last 12 to 15 months.
Right. Can you just talk about what's happening in terms of, US markets and what essentially is the risk over there, not only for L&T Infotech, but the entire IT sector?
Yes, on the business side, this year would be interesting. Calendar year 2017 would be very interesting from a US market perspective because you have banking vertical, which is starting off on a lot more promising note than the same time last year. You have essentially manufacturing vertical, which is reasonable in terms of growth prospects. Energy vertical has more or less bottomed out. So I think, if you just look at it from a setup perspective, calendar year 2017 looks a little bit more promising than what one saw in calendar year 2016. Of course, the downside risk is any changes to immigration would have immigration rules, rather than any changes to visa rules would have a negative bearing on IT companies. But, some part of it is already baked into the valuations of some of these companies as such. But, the key thing would be changes to visa rules, which would be at risk overall.
Right. In terms of IT, Kawaljeet, can you just tell us what's happening in the sector? We've not seen such valuations earlier. What are investors telling you? What is the sort of fear in the IT sector?
The fear in the IT sector is twofold. One is that continued, essentially, first is digital risk. Essentially, the general belief is that Indian IT companies started off late in their, on their investments in digital side, and that is something, on which investors expected companies to invest in this earlier. Now, the second risk really is about slowdown in growth rates because of commoditization of traditional services, which is causing pricing pressure, and a fear that the profitability would be under pressure. So the valuations reflect both these risks as such. I think today the entire sector is being painted in one broad brush. I think in any sector, what you would have certain winners and certain losers, and the trick is really to identify which companies have invested adequately in digital and will be able to capture the next wave of growth opportunity.
Right. In terms of the sector and the payout, a lot has been said about how companies would pay out back to their shareholders. We've seen TCS announce a big buyback. Some of the other companies are also reporting buyback. You think investors will get excited with such payouts?
I think capital allocation is always something which is a focus when the growth rates slow. When the growth rates mature. That's an efficient capital allocation in which a large part of the cash is returned back to shareholders in the form of dividends as well as stock buyback, acts as a floor to stock valuations as such. TCS started off on a great note by announcing a buyback and capital allocation. Something which is articulate, but at least the intent seems to be paying out a reasonable amount of cash generated back to shareholders. I think there's an expectation that other companies will also follow suit.
You had a big IT conference just a few weeks back. Can you just tell us what were the key takeaways? What were the key questions asked?
And the key takeaways from the IT conference, if I have to summarize it in three statements, was that a lot more optimism on growth for calendar year 2017, based on a good start from financial services, or other early conversations which indicate that financial services sector is looking far better than what it was same time last year. Second was confidence amongst companies to manage profitability. And third is that a lot more closer scrutiny on capital allocation, on which many companies were quite open towards, returning, thinking about this seriously and doing what's best for shareholders as such.
Right. Just to summarize, what will be your top picks? We spoke about L&T that you like. Any other names within the top pick list?
So amongst the large cap names, we like Infosys.
Right. Infosys would be the only top pick in the large cap space?
So the names that we like are Infosys, Tech Mahindra, and L&T Infotech.